Here, well, let's just talk about Starbucks. The controversy that is Starbucks right now, and this was after there was that controversial arrest of the two black men in one of the Starbucks in Philadelphia. A lot of news coming out of Philadelphia. This is where the emergency landing with that plane story happened yesterday. But in Philadelphia, we know this happened, right? And so everyone was outraged after this, because, or a majority of people were outraged after this, because why did these gentlemen who happened to be black, why were they arrested when they were just waiting for their friend who they were waiting on? I guess these two men, or one of the men, had asked to use the restroom. They said, no, until you buy something, you can't use the restroom. They stayed in the Starbucks, and that's when the employee called the police on them. So they were actually arrested. So the controversy comes with, why were these gentlemen arrested? Well, since then, Starbucks has come out and said, you know what? Because we understand that there is implicit racism and implicit racial bias that happens in our country, and clearly with this employee, we are shutting down every single Starbucks in the nation next month on May 29th, and we are going to provide education and talk about racism in this country. It's only going to be for a couple of hours in this training session, but the doors will be closed and locked on May 29th, and no one can purchase Starbucks so that we can have this education. Well, people are on both sides. Some are saying, this is such an inconvenience. This didn't happen to me, so why am I being punished and I can't get my Starbucks? Well, other people are saying, this is great. Why isn't this being done more, and not just Starbucks locations, but at employers across the country? Why aren't we getting this training about racism in this country, and what can be done? So I just want your perspective on it, and we'll get our viewers in here too.
I think that, you know, and we know this just instinctively, the PR people for Starbucks are probably the best in the business, because they always manage to find their way into the news on a good day. Then you have this news, clearly, which every employee of Starbucks is appalled, including the CEO, who was on all the morning shows the very next morning to try and get ahead of this story, and then to do something about it, because they realize we are in the news. This is not a good story for us. This doesn't reflect our mission, our values. This was one employee's decision that we believe is a wrong decision, so we're going to get ahead of this. And then they go to this length, which for almost every other corporate response to something like this, this reaction is way outsized compared to almost anything else that I can think of.
You're willing to lose money?
Oh, yeah, exactly. But that's how they turn this clearly negative news story for all involved into perhaps a positive story where everybody can learn a little bit more, be a little bit more informed, not just the employees, but the customers as well. And I think that that's how you get it done. I mean, they are somehow able to turn this into a potentially positive news story down the road. That is incredible. And what you were saying this morning, Walt, is that this may be a blueprint for other corporate responses if they agree with how to respond like this.
Yeah, I think it's a good teaching moment, and I agree with everything you said. However, the reporter in me has questions about what happened.
Right.
So you have two black men who are there and not ordering anything. And I can see where the staff would be like, hey, man, you know, you can't be hanging out. Anybody can't be hanging out here unless you're going to order something. What was the response from the two guys who were realtors? What was said to the Starbucks employees? And then the cops come. Did they not have any dialogue with the guys? If I'm the two guys who were arrested, I would have said, hey, we're a couple of realtors here. We're having a business meeting. The guys are 10 minutes late. If I'm the cops, I'm like, I'm good with that. I'm out of here.
Right.
I don't know what the dialogue was that led to handcuffs.
Right.
And that part I haven't heard yet. It doesn't look good for Starbucks, and it doesn't look good for the police, but there's a missing piece to this which led the whole thing to handcuffs to two guys who are professional businessmen waiting on a meeting. And who hasn't been at a Starbucks where somebody's 5 minutes late to meet you?
Right, exactly.
I don't know what led to this point.
I believe it's when they wanted to go to the bathroom.
Sure.
And they couldn't use the restroom. You know, some Starbucks, you have to have a key or a code.
Yes.
They couldn't get access to the restroom because they had not ordered their stuff yet. They approached them, they said it, and they, from my understanding, did not want to leave.
Doesn't look good.
Yet.
It doesn't look good.
So the employee calls the police.
We have two guys trying to use the bathroom who haven't ordered something, and that's an arrestable offense.
You're right.
And you saw the guy in the cell phone video. There, you see the two black guys getting cuffed, and the white guy is looking. What do they do?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, he's like the advocate. Like, what they're standing here.
Like,
why
I'm here now.
Why he's like the play-by-play guy of the arrest going down, and I'm like, yeah, I need to know more about what led to the cuffs.
Well, the lady who shot the video did an interview, and she said in her words, she says, there isn't anything more to this story. That's exactly how it played out. They were arrested for no reason. I was sitting right next to them the whole time. They did not raise their voice. There was no tension. It just happened very quickly, and I was appalled from the beginning to the middle to the end. And now I'm paraphrasing her.
Sure.
We should find her exact quote, so I'm not misleading anybody here. But the first question you asked is, what else is there to this? Because perhaps, let's just say, voices were raised. People felt threatened. This can happen in a confrontation.
Somebody said
I'm
blank
the manager.
you to the cop.
Yeah.
Somebody might have said blank you to the cop.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay,
right.
I was on the fence. The cop's thinking I was on the
right.
fence about this anyway.
Right.
But now you just went over the line on this.
Right.
So is the fault really with Starbucks, or is the fault with the Philadelphia policemen?
Right.
Starbucks did not arrest these guys.
Right.
They had a couple of dudes who were there that they thought might
right.
be loitering.
Right.
And they called the cops. Now the cops come in to handle this.
Right.
So what is it? Where are we with this? Is it not that issue?
Right.
Like what? I don't know. I mean, I go to the Starbucks here on Broadway.
Right.
There's some characters in there.
Yes.
That you would think, are you going to call the police on these guys?
Right.
In this case, it didn't work out, but I don't know. You know, Starbucks is taking the high road on this. Let me just say, I think they're taking
right.
the high road because there seems to be enough blame to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this again happened in Philadelphia. So we know that all the 8,000 Starbucks locations across the country will have their doors shut. But for those who are
for
saying
2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
One gentleman said that they're seeing it's 2 hours. I'm reporting a couple of hours because I haven't seen where Starbucks has officially said how many hours.
Right.
But it begs the question: should this sort of education
mm-hmm.
be something that's implemented across the board in,
mm-hmm.
in different HR departments? You know, when you're hired on to different companies,
mm-hmm.
I would say. Yes, because while it's ingrained in our culture, and sometimes we don't
mm-hmm.
even know it exists, but
mm-hmm.
we act a certain way. We are not racist. Some people say, I'm not racist, yet you act a certain way toward people. I would like to hear from that employee who might say, I'm not a racist. I have a black friend.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make you not racist.
Don't say that.
Right.
Never say that.
But you hear that often.
True.
I know people who are black. That doesn't make you non-racist in the ways in which you interact with people.
Mm-hmm.
Because people will say, if these gentlemen were white, would they have been handcuffed?
Doubt it. I
Right.
doubt it. I mean, that's just how the world or this country is.
Mm-hmm.
And for Starbucks, you know, they seem to be getting out ahead of this.
Yeah.
And when this first broke on my feed, there were a lot of local activists in the black community who are like, okay, which Starbucks are we boycotting?
Right.
Because we're boycotting.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is completely, I think, and I can't speak for the black community, completely turned that around
Right.
where it's like, whoa,
Right.
they're closing 8,000 stores for X amount of time
Right.
to teach racial sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm
Right.
actually there. And how much money is
Right.
that costing Starbucks?
Right.
They are literally, you know, I think that's just a tremendous move and tremendous PR move on there.
Do you guys remember the beer summit, the infamous beer summit with Obama, the professor in D.C. who was accused of breaking into his own house?
He was the Harvard professor.
Yes, exactly. So, and that was another one of these scenarios where there might have been some inherent racial bias, an overreaction, and then you have the sort of the next step, which is sitting down, talking about it, and then it becomes a teachable moment. But these things keep popping up, so we're going to keep having these moments where everyone sits around and says, okay, what really happened here? Was this the appropriate response? And where did this come from? How did the police get involved is really
the question.
the question. And then when they were involved, what made them go from mediating, okay, what's going on here, to I'm arresting both people and taking you out, which is humiliating experience, even if you're totally innocent. Exactly.
They went peacefully too.
The police chief in Philadelphia saying, yes, and he happens to be a black man. I'm a black man. I know this is an issue. There's no tolerance for it within my department, but my officers had to do what they had to do because the report was that we had 2 people trespassing, and here they were. They didn't purchase anything. So were the police in the wrong for handcuffing? I mean, they're the ones that have the ultimate say, right?
That's why I said
there's a missing link.
There's a giant missing part of the story that led to, and they were not being disorderly from what I saw.
It was like,
what was said, what happened, what triggered handcuffs.
Right.
Like I said, if I'm one of the 2 guys there about to be cuffed, I'm like saying to the officer, my name is John Logan. I work with Keller Williams Realty.
Right.
I'm about
Please
to
don't
have a
arrest me.
meeting.
That's
I'm about to have a
embarrassing.
meeting here.
Right.
If I'm the cop, I'm like, I'm good.
Right.
Starbucks,
Right.
That's what
are
I'm
you
saying.
good? These
Right.
guys seem legit to me. I mean, you got to have a feel for the feel of the situation.
Right, exactly.
And I see all of your comments right now, but I do want to get to the final topic. But thank you for commenting. We will continue to get back into these comments and continue the conversation after Extra Shot. Thanks so much for watching. To see more stories like this one, click subscribe.